Right now, little sister, right now.
All right. Everyone's ready? Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much.
We have a quorum, I understand. There are a couple of things that, or at least one item that has been requested to pull from the consent agenda.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to remove.
You don't have to make a motion, just tell me which one to pull.
Oh, sorry. I guess it's A116, Teach for America, and move it for discussion.
All right, anything else on the consent agenda? We're going to add a director's report and a chair's report that was inadvertently left off. Any other changes to the agenda as printed?
Yes. I'd like to move that we go into executive session either now or after the meeting.
You can have an executive session after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other changes to the agenda? All right, can I get a motion to accept the agenda with the changes?
Move that we accept the agenda with the proposed changes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving to the director's report.
Oh, well, thank you, Dr. Gentry, for giving me the opportunity to speak, and to the board and to the public. It is amazing that it was 25 years ago on this day, March 26th, that I committed to a life of service and the values of manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift at Lincoln University. As my time in Nashville begins to wind down, I hope that our children, our employees, and our communities have witnessed these traits manifested in every public and private interaction that I've had with you. It's important for our kids to see adults who work from a value system, and it's really been both my joy and honor to serve you. Today I want to take a brief moment to publicly address a few issues that have come up that we just think need to be addressed, and it has saddened me a bit to see, some calculated, relentless attempts to just, look at the work that has been done. But I would say, as a believer, we understand that the devil seeks to attack those who genuinely work hard to build God's kingdom as he would want it to be built up, particularly with underprivileged people, with voiceless people, and those who've had it kind of hard, being at the forefront of our mind and our work. So, when we see behaviors which have resulted in my desire not to request a contract extension or stay in Metro Nashville Public Schools past June 2020, it could be summed up in the teachings of the Arbinger Institute. And when the board and I started on this journey a few years back, the majority of the board and our leadership team attended a training to avoid getting into this kind of place that we're in. And the training taught us the following. So let's say that I was working with Dr. Gentry here, and I came across some information that would be very helpful to Dr. Gentry to do her work. If I'm seeing Dr. Gentry as a person, what might I do? All right, we share that information. Good. This is a call and response, so you can feel free to just come on in. Right. You'd share the information. Right? Absolutely. See, sharing the information, you have a choice. And that choice is important because you have an opportunity to honor that choice or not. If you choose not to honor that choice, that's what we call betraying ourselves. And we get into the situation of betrayal. And let's think about what happens when we betray the choice to do the right thing. Well, what happens is, how do you suppose I might have seen Dr. Gentry? Well, I might think she's lazy or incompetent or a threat or a burden, and there's no real reason to give her that information. And how do you suppose I would see myself? I see myself as I must be busy, hardworking, too helpful, and not an enabler. Do any of these thoughts that I'm thinking invite me to go back and do something differently for Dr. Gentry? No, they don't. What do they do for me? They justify me not doing right. All right, so when I betray myself in the sense of doing the right thing, I have a need, and that need is to be justified. And you see, it's this need to be justified, this need to prove that we're right, that gets us in trouble. And it's that need, I think, that has affected the board and administration's ability to focus on our children, because that's what we should be doing, is focusing on children. And we all have a role to play in the problem, so I don't absolve myself from the role. We're all in it, and we all have a role to play in the solution. So we're in this place because we have some members that have forgotten the history of where we started as a district, and we have a biased, unnamed news station that continues to try to justify behaviors in the name of accountability. So one criticism that has continuously come up has been around culture. And in my very first interview on May 5th, 2016, I actually had an opportunity to ask the board what was one of the most pressing issues for me to focus on if I were to be selected as our next director. And Ms. Spearing shared the following. She said that teachers have lived in a culture of fear in Metro Nashville Public Schools for about 10 years. And some people say that this is not true, but we all hear it all the time. When I go out, I hear it from principals, I hear it from teachers. We haven't been able to grapple with it in a way that we can recognize it. And that was at 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 4 seconds into that interview, if anybody wants to fact check that one. And then at 1 hour and 15 minutes and 50 seconds into the interview, Ms. Frog shared changing the culture here for teachers and for everyone that works in the schools, because I think if you can create a culture of support coupled with high expectations, it will change things. Someone that can bring healing to the district, that would be a servant leader. I think you understand from the quote that you have on your resume. And the quote that I had on my resume was a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it was from his speech, The Drum Major's Instinct. And I'll come back to that at the end of this talk. But I do want to talk about some of the other specific criticisms that have come up. The main issues have been my license being flagged by the state, how we have handled sexual harassments, how we've spent taxpayer dollars, and our human resources audit. Since the media has refused to delve deeply and thoughtfully into any of these issues, I'll take executive privilege to address each one of these areas. All right, so first, I take seriously any failure to report suspensions, dismissals, or resignations of MNPS employees that would warrant consideration for license suspensions or revocation under the state board rules. 12 such instances were identified during the 2017-2018 school year and the 2018-2019 school years. In our review, we found 10 of these matters that were mishandled by an employee in MNPS Human Resources Office who was offered the option to resign from our school district. Of those matters, we further found evidence that I had signed paperwork for the purpose of making reports to the state, but those reports were not submitted by the former employee who is no longer with us. I regret that these matters were mishandled, and I want the state board to know that we have taken corrective action. Secondly, I've identified structural deficiencies relative to how MNPS has historically handled, or in some cases mishandled, these situations. As you know, many large school systems have developed in-house legal capacity to ensure compliance with state and federal rules and regulations. For example, our friends in Shelby County Schools has a general counsel and a chief legal officer overseeing a team of more than a half-dozen attorneys in the district's central office, in addition to legal support the district receives from Shelby County's attorney. While Shelby County is larger than Metro Nashville Public Schools, we are the second largest district in Tennessee with nearly 11,000 employees, and I believe we could benefit from a similar but smaller in-house legal structure. Our attorneys at the Metro Department of Law concur that developing additional legal capacity is critical to ensuring future compliance, and they are reviewing the Metro Charter to determine the best path for doing so. Meanwhile, I have proceeded to hire an attorney on staff who is specifically detailed to the MNPS Human Resources Office to help us avoid situations like this on an ongoing basis. Finally, in discussing this matter with attorneys, my understanding is that MNPS is not the only school district in Tennessee to fail to report suspensions, dismissals, or resignations of employees that would warrant consideration for license suspension or revocation under state board rules. In the spirit of collective improvement, I stand ready to share our experiences and corrective actions with other districts, and I have respectively requested that the state board extend the same professional collaboration and courtesy to Metro Nashville schools that it's given to other superintendents and districts around the state. In a district with over 11,000 employees, for the director of schools to potentially receive such a consequence is a bit extreme. This is an issue that the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents should take up, because I believe the intent of the law is to make sure that school districts are doing the right thing. The intent is not to destroy the livelihood of directors of schools who are unable or unaware of the underperformance and underreporting of employees. I do not believe that the intent of the law is for the director of schools to become a human resources official. The employees who sent the forms reported to 2 employees under me, and it's unrealistic for the head of an organization as large as ours to know that individuals have not done their work, particularly when our legal team and others followed up and directed individuals to do their work properly. Once I was aware of the issue, swift action was taken, and we strengthened our processes. I'm working with the state to address this issue, and I'm confident that reason will prevail. So as we move on into sexual harassment, it's clear to communicate that I do not tolerate sexual harassment at all. We have strong school system policies, and it is my expectation that all employees follow our policies. Since the issues have arisen, we have taken 5 concrete actions. First, we've strengthened our systems to improve the handling of harassment issues in the district. The employee relations team and other human resources staff work to establish consistent processes, procedures, and training sessions in the central office and schools, as well as a school system of checks and balances to ensure the processes are being implemented and are working. Secondly, we've increased our training. In the second half of 2018, the Executive Officer for Human Resources for Talent Strategy, in partnership with Metro Legal and input from principals and other leaders, developed a robust investigative training program entitled Investigation Processes and Legal Responsibilities. A total of 6 sessions were held this past January, and we had 283 leaders attend. Additional sessions are being held in early April for those principals and central office leaders who were unable to make the January session, and mid-level leaders will also be invited. The trainings iterate information that leaders have seen previously, but also introduces new information and improved tools for leaders to use. Leaders have been given documented processes, procedures, laws, policies, forms, and templates, and reporting requirements. Leaders' obligations to create a safe environment are also emphasized. The training also addresses the importance of clear, concise, signed and dated documented investigation notes. Note that the employee relations team is also working on developing an online harassment and discrimination session for all employees, which is slated to be implemented early in 2019-2020. Third, we created a hotline. So we sent an email to all employees to inform them of a structure in place for employees to report concerns confidentially. We encouraged employees to use the confidential hotline or reach out directly to the employee relations team. Fourth, we are adding personnel, so to improve the turnaround on investigations, the administration's 2020 budget proposal seeks to add another 0.5 FTE to the HR budget for the employee relations team. And finally, we have increased our dialogue to strengthen empowerment. I and others are engaged with staff through voice sessions at the quadrant and district level. as well as various teacher and parent groups. These conversations offer opportunities for staff and parents to share concerns and generate solutions. Some participants have followed up with questions, and we have worked to respond quickly, and we work quickly to address their concerns. And many of the items that were underway prior to the report, but we'll be sure to follow up on all of them. Next, let's talk about contracts. So let me start by saying that I spend much less than my predecessor did on contractual services. The difference is I did cut ineffective contracts of friends of certain board members at the beginning of my tenure. And I have dealt with one board member who's been angry since October of 2016. You know, any board would understand that a CEO who has a track record of success in getting results will bring with him or her knowledge of services that have been successful. To try to make the argument that because I've worked with the company in an ethical and professional way in an environment that had better results than we have, and to try to paint those actions as illegal or unethical is just insulting. All business actions that have been conducted under my leadership have been ethical. A longtime procurement official unknowingly made mistakes, and corrective action was taken to follow a thorough review of all contracts by Metro Legal. It's unfortunate that Metro Legal did not catch the error when signing off on the contract, and then once again failed to flag the issue when the contract was brought to the board floor for our approval. I am a director of schools. I'm not an attorney, nor am I a procurement expert. It's my job to correct issues when they arise, and I've done so by requiring our procurement team to be retrained, working with Metro Legal to ensure that their signature actually means that we're following the law, and disciplining the individuals responsible for those errors. Over the course of the past 2.5 years, I've pushed this organization with a sense of urgency, and I don't apologize for that. This school system did not have the urgency that was needed to get the results we sought, namely being the fastest improving urban district in America. If there was a mistake that I made, it was that I pushed too hard with too little resources, and as a result, people made errors. The errors were not intentional or willful, as our audit communicated. They were just errors. And as long as the errors were not unethical or immoral, we treated our employees fairly as we disciplined them. Moving into the human resources audit, as you may recall, I requested that the board audit our human resources department, and I was appreciative that the board agreed. My intent was to know if there were any errors in how we handled sexual harassment investigations. The audit did not find errors in the conclusions that were drawn, but it did find that processes could be strengthened and that processes had been broken for years. Due to a lack of confidentiality of board members to date, my team has still not met with the law firm to understand how they came up with their conclusions. It's unreasonable for anyone to expect me to follow all of the audit's recommendations if we've not had the opportunity to sit down and understand the methodology that was used to draw conclusions. As a qualitative researcher, I've been trained not to accept generalizations without understanding the processes used, particularly when you're talking about qualitative work. Processes in these types of reports is critical in determining which recommendations are valid and which recommendations may not have enough credible information to be validated. Once the board provides me with guidance on how we can best engage with the legal firm that conducted that report, I can give an update. The action plan that was created was a start to what will be a multi-year process to support a department that has been woefully undersupported and woefully underfunded prior to my arrival. So I will conclude by saying that it has truly been my honor to serve you as your director of schools. I've worked with a sense of urgency and with an equity agenda. And as a result of the great work of our employees, that equity agenda has shown great results, including we looked at Title I funds and we put more dollars in our poorest schools because they needed the resources to be able to have an opportunity to do something. We have placed a significant emphasis on literacy, and we work with the mayor's office and dozens of nonprofits to create the Blueprint for Early Childhood Success, which is an action plan for doubling the number of students reading on grade level by 2025. We successfully achieved year one benchmarks in reading, and we also made sure every school had a qualified literacy coach. We're proud that once again this year we haven't presented officially our MAP results, but when they come out, they'll show that once again for the second year in a row, every student group in every grade tested grew faster than the nation this year. In math, every student group in every grade level, with the exception of fifth grade math, grew faster than the nation. We doubled the number of students taking advanced placement courses in high school and nearly doubled the amount of students taking college entrance exams and industry certification exams. We saw improvement in the pass rates of students who took industry certification exams was jumped from 59% to 61%, and the number of students taking the exam increased by 70% over the previous year. Average ACT scores increased from an 18.7 to an 18.9, with more students taking the exam, and in addition, more students are earning a 21 on the ACT than ever before. We've ensured that all students in our elementary and middle schools have access to gifted and talented services by creating the Advanced Academic Resource Teacher position and ensuring all schools have at least a part-time person serving students. And 2 years ago, we were able to secure a 3% raise and a step for the hardworking employees. While we were not fully funded last year and we had to cut $15 million from our budget, this year we've asked for an increase, and we've also asked for an additional increase for our bus drivers and our bus attendants. We've secured $24 million in federal dollars to support the creation of 5 elementary magnet schools to provide more social emotional support to pre-K students, as well as professional development for arts-related educators. And we also received a little bit over $13 million in our Gear Up grant. We developed a strategic plan for the district with clear accountability measures and a new evaluation tool that has been clearly communicated as one of the most rigorous in the country if used effectively, if not weaponized, but if used to just tell how we're doing and then giving us an opportunity to shift resources or shift strategy to focus on what we need to focus on. We reduced suspensions by 1,782 infractions, and the greatest headway has been made for African American males who are being suspended at disproportionate rates. We established a science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics focus for 18 middle schools to ensure that coding was offered in those schools, and we reduced the technology ratio with more targeted professional development for teachers in those schools. We increased funding for special education and English language learners by $7.2 million last year, while we cut $15 million from our budget. And we established an early college program for grades 9 through 12. We had a middle college, 10-12, but the expectations weren't clear. So we started in 9th grade with the expectation that every student that's there will graduate with an associate's degree and their high school diploma in 4 years, and it will be at no cost to families. Yeah. So, it is clear to me that we have been focusing on the adults recently, and I signed up to focus on our kids. So as a result, I'm not interested in a contract extension, so I'm formally requesting that this board evoke the section of my contract that allows for us to have a mutual conversation to figure out how to best transition. It is my hope that my time in Nashville has inspired our community to become more united and more active in supporting public education. You know, because I still believe that Nashville has all of the ingredients that are needed to continue to move the needle for children. There has been much said recently about the perception of my poor treatment, and I do want to remind our community that this is not a time to point fingers or to blame people. It's a time for action, and it's a time for you to remember your civic duty to vote. For those who still have a hard time with how this looks and what it'll do to our community as we move forward. You know, all I can do in my heart is to remind you of Dr. King's recollection of the power of someone understanding who you serve, as he shared in his sermon titled The Drum Major's Instincts. You see, it's the story of a man who just served. He was born in an obscure village. and he was born the child of a poor peasant woman. And then he grew up still in another obscure village where he worked as a carpenter until he was about 30 years old. Then for 3 years, he just got on his feet, and he was an itinerant preacher. He went about doing some good things. He didn't have much. He never wrote a book. He didn't have a PhD. He didn't hold an office. He didn't have a family. He didn't have a house. Like I said, he didn't even go to college. He never visited a big city. He never actually went anywhere 200 miles past where he grew up. He did none of the usual things that the world would associate with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33 years old when the tide of public opinion turned against him. They called him a rabble-rouser. They called him a troublemaker. They said he was an agitator. He practiced civil disobedience and he broke injunctions. And so he was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. And the irony of all of this is that his friends turned him over. Right. You know, one of his closest friends actually denied him. Another friend turned him over to his enemies, and while he was dying, the people who killed him gambled for his clothes, the only possessions that he had in the world. And when he was dead, he was buried in a borrowed tomb through the pity of a friend. 20 centuries have come and gone, and today he still stands as the most influential figure that has ever lived in human history. All of the armies that ever marched, all of the navies that ever sailed, all of the parliaments that ever sat, all of the kings that ever reigned put together have not yet affected the life of man on this earth as much as this one solitary life. Now, his name may be familiar to you, but today we can hear them talking about him. Every now and then somebody says he's the King of Kings, and you hear some people saying that he's the Lord of Lords, and somewhere else you hear people saying in Christ there is no east or west, and then they go on and talk about him there is no north or south, but one great fellowship of love throughout the whole wide world. And he didn't have anything. He just went around doing a bunch of good. So I remind us of this, I remind us of this story today because when you commit to serving, everything just finds a way to work out. And I'm confident that we'll continue to be fine, and I pray that this school system continues to be fine. You all know that I like listening to rap songs, so I'll go ahead and leave you with the great rapper and philosopher Tupac Shakur. And what I'll say to that is, I ain't mad at you. In due time, everybody tends to get what they deserve. So at this time, Dr. Gentry, I'm going to ask to just step out and speak with the media, and with your permission, I'll end for tonight. Thank you.
So going into the chair's report, I know people have been taking copious notes during Dr. Joseph's report, and you will be able to address any of your concerns during your announcements. So in the chair's report, now that this information is public and has been shared, I just want to, in his absence, and for those who are in the great fraternity with him, to pass along my congratulations on his 25th anniversary of dedicated service through Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. But as he's pointed out, it has become increasingly obvious that this board's priorities and Dr. Joseph's priorities and the priorities of others who have had external influence on what's happened here at this table just don't align. And so it is come to the point where it is best that we allow him to go on and continue to do great things. And so I make these comments because I know as a part of any future hire, any future search, that this will be the meeting that people will pull up. It won't just be the meeting where he was maligned or accused or called out of his name or associated negatively because of people he knew who knew people who knew people that did bad things. And so this will be the meeting that people look to say, well, what happened? What really happened in Nashville? And I know that there are board members who have and may even choose to pick up the phone and place phone calls to potential employers. So I want to take this opportunity at this time, at this table, to give my personal thanks. And for those of you who continue to hold signs that say Dr. Joseph's got to go, you can give your arm a rest. He's going. He's going. Don't hurt yourself. You'll get a cramp. This is not a good day. This is not a good day. I cannot imagine the mindset that leads somebody to believe that a highly talented, highly educated individual would pack up his family, leave his home, leave his friends, leave the life that he knows to come to Nashville to become a criminal. It just defies logic. When people ask, I know that Ms. Buggs gets asked, why do you continue to support him? I get asked, Mr. Pinkston's been asked, and I want to tell you why. I'm going to tell you because in my district, there are 5,471 African-American students. In Christian's district, there's 8,731 African-American students. In my district, there's 4,521 students considered economically disadvantaged. In Christian's district, that number is 6,860. Mr. Pinkston's district, that number is 3,414. I share that to marry it with the data that I'm going a little bit deeper on the MAP scores, that African-American students grew in literacy. Hispanic students grew, again, in literacy. Economically disadvantaged students grew in literacy, which is where we put our focus, which is the charge this board actually gave him for this year. We set targets. We charged him and his team to move those numbers. And even to echo Ms. Shepard's words during those interviews, I need you to move the needle and move the needle fast. And to have done that in the short time that he's been here, he has moved the needle and he's moved the needle fast. So this is not a good day. This is not a good day. And so I have 1,000 people I can apologize to, but Kennedy, you're standing there, so you get it all. And so I apologize to you, Kennedy Musgrave, as a student who saw a Dr. Joseph for the first time, who saw a Dr. Joseph who saw you. And that's what the outward mindset work is about. He saw Kennedy Musgrave. He didn't see a number. He didn't see a data point. He saw a young female who, in her own words, had experienced bias, both racial, both ethnic, both social, in her capacity as a highly gifted and talented student in our public schools. And she doubted herself, she second-guessed, she almost gave up, and then Dr. Joseph came along. Not that her mom didn't always do her part as well. And he said, how can I help? And so he encouraged Kennedy to create an organization within her school to support other students just like her, that looked like her. And as her mother shared in a couple of interviews, that wasn't it, that he kept in touch with Kennedy, and he kept in touch with how her progress was going, and he put support behind her program. I think he personally donated funds to her program so that she can continue to provide that support. And there's a bunch of Kennedy Musgraves, and there's a bunch of Kennedy Musgraves that are coming up, that currently exist, and that have seen a Dr. Joseph for the first time. So I apologize. I apologize, because I can only imagine the difference it could have made in so many of our lives had we had a Dr. Joseph when we were going to elementary school and middle school and high school, when we were being told that, you know, you're just not good enough. And I know there are advanced courses you could be taking, and I know you want to take them, but, you know, students that look like you don't do well. I got it all the way up through college. Students that come from HBCUs and transfer to PWIs and engineering schools, they don't really come with the kind of background and the education and the talent that they really need. So maybe you need to go to another school. I know y'all are tired of my voice. The sighs are getting loud. They're getting loud. But that's okay. That's okay. So, you know, to his comment that Nashville has the ingredients to be great, I would agree with that. But our recipe is flawed. Our recipe is totally, totally flawed. And I do believe we don't have the right cooks in the kitchen. So again, this goes back to ensuring that what has happened here with a Sean Joseph is not the end. This has to be the beginning of a new conversation about how students and how people of color in this city are viewed. Has to be the beginning. We've had conversations for years about the lack of leadership, diversity in leadership, diversity in significant roles, diversity in our advanced programs, diversity in our schools, diversity in our communities, and it's just getting more difficult. So we cannot let this be the end because Dr. Joseph walks away. What Dr. Joseph has shown us is that what we've already known for years. We're good at what we do. And when we're given an opportunity, we can do great things. And when we have the right support systems, we can do great things. So let's make sure we create the right systems and create opportunities for more Dr. Josephs and more Kennedy Musgraves to do the right things. So as he has said, and as I have said, and as he continues to say, and as we are all aware, he is ready to part ways, and we have to let him go. Let me tell you why. I've had 4 people today, 104 people yesterday, just 4 people today, to ask, was there anything we can do? Is there anything we can do? If I could, I wouldn't, because the climate is not right for Dr. Joseph. And the longer Dr. Joseph sits here, the harsher the comments are going to become. Trust me, there are already plans. There's already, do know this, do not mistake that there are already plans to create more negative narratives around him because the goal is to destroy. The enemy comes to do what? That's it. Comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And we cannot let him be destroyed. He has great work to do. We may not be the beneficiaries of it, not directly, but what he has shown us is it can happen. It can happen. And for whomever comes to this seat, we've got to demand that this growth and this progress continues. That our students who have been ignored for decades in this system, who have finally gotten resources through equity initiatives, that those initiatives don't fall by the wayside, and that we remain vigilant. We remain vigilant because what they count on us to do is to get really riled up and to get real mad. And then when it's all over, well, he's gone and go our separate ways. We cannot scatter. We cannot scatter on the issue of our children because that's what it's about. It's about our children. So finally, we've got to put the focus back on the kids. There's a lot of school year left, a lot of school year left. We got TN Ready testing coming up next month. We've got a budget that needs to be finalized and presented to the mayor, and we've got a lot of advocacy to do around that. So those of you that I see out here today, I thank you for your presence and your engagement. I now ask and pray for your continued presence and your continued engagement in the public education system for the benefit of all students. Thank you very much. We're going to go to the consent agenda. After the consent agenda, we'll go to announcements. I'm going to church. I'm going to church. So after the consent agenda, I will be departing. And that you don't have to come with me. I'm just going. I'm going to church. And so you read the consent agenda and then the announcements.
Okay, the consent agenda is as read. 1A, recommended approval of change order number 8 for Martin Luther King Jr. Magnet School additions and renovations, American Constructors, Inc. 1B. I'm sorry, do you pull them? I did. 1B, recommended approval of supplement number 3 for Martin Luther King Jr. Magnet High School additions and renovations, Phase 2, Bauer Askew Architecture, PLLC. 1C, recommended approval of request number 1 for large scope projects at various schools, Hume-Fogg Magnet High School skylight replacement, Southland Constructors, Inc. 1D, recommended award of contract for HVAC renovations for Taylor Stratton Elementary School, Demand Mechanical. 1E, awarding of purchases and contracts. 1, Apple, Inc. 2, Bernard MCC. 3, Catapult Learning, LLC. 4, Edgenuity, Inc. 5, Jigsaw Learning, LLC, DBA Teachtown. 6, Learn IT Systems, LLC. 7, Lee Company. 8, Lipscomb University. 9, Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. 10, National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. 11, Personal Computer Systems, Inc. 12, Public Consulting Group, PCG, Inc. 13, Snyder Fleet Solutions. 14, Specially Designed Education Services. 15, STARS Nashville, Students Taking the Right Stand. 17, Vanderbilt University. Madam Chair, I move that we accept the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item 16, I think, was pulled by you.
That was. Thank you so much. So I asked to pull the TFA or Teach for America contract as there's lots of conversation about that relationship. And I will speak for my own district. So I've heard from both pros and cons about it. And I have, of course, talked to and internally kind of what I would like to see for that relationship. I understand that for some educators, Teach for America can be insulting to you, that you feel like you have gone to school and that is what you dedicated your profession to, and that a 5-week crash course does not make someone equal to your commitment to education and the profession. And I understand that. So I have heard that, and I have heard from principals as well. A request that I have had internally, and I want to see if we have confirmation on those things, is in regards to their current contract as we have it. So I was asking about 3 things. If we could have the cost be $5,000 per teacher instead of $6,000. If there's a reimbursement, if the TFA teacher does not complete their 2-year commitment, and if we can have it as 3 years instead of 5 years, so we can review that contract at 3 years instead of 5 years. My concern for TFA at this time is that they do serve a role in some high and hard to staff classrooms. We do have some classrooms that are hard to staff. As y'all all know, we have lots of vacancies. And so are they helping us in the way that we cannot find other teachers to help us? Additionally, specifically for my district, we're trying to get the Kurdish language to be taught in schools. Currently, we are having a very difficult time in that planning to find teachers that could do that teaching, and I think it's important. And so it would likely need some type of national request like TFA as a specific mention to my district. So is there or has there been a conversation about those 3 things that I mentioned, and do we have confirmation about that?
Yes, Ms. Elrod, you actually asked me to go back and inquire about all 3 of those, and basically after conversation with TFA today, they have basically agreed to all 3. There's one thing I do want to start with regarding the contract. All of our contracts have a annual cancellation clause, so we can review those at any point in time anyway. But TFA did agree to exercise the existing contract as stated for 3 years with a planned review after 3 for the remaining 2. They did agree that in the event that they do not fill the 30 seats, that they would only bill at the $5,000 rate as opposed to $6,000 rate that's currently listed in the contract, as well as that if a TFA teacher does not fulfill the 2-year term, that they would reimburse the district the prorated amount for the time to which they did not serve or complete their existing contract.
Okay, thank you. And then additionally, have we had any conversations about how we want to use TFA strategically? How we don't want that to become the norm, but as a usage of truly for certain schools or certain classrooms or certain subjects?
Well, there are a lot of ways that I can go with this response. Each of you were provided with a simple 1-pager of some things that I feel are really the key to the TFA partnership. One, with the current state of MNPS hiring 700 or so new teachers every year, our HR department, my HR department, I'm sorry, does really not have the capacity to do the national recruiting necessary to fill some of our needs in some of our buildings. TFA currently recruits more teachers of color, recruits and retains more teachers in hard-to-fill subject areas, as well as recruits and retains more teachers in some of our highest need schools, including our priority schools. Their retention data and performance data currently exceeds others, especially when we're talking about our own recruitment of brand new teachers. So I just feel that at this point in time, considering that we are in March, that I strongly recommend we move forward with the TFA contract as stated. We've already had the agreement and the the agreement to address the 3 points that you asked about, but we cannot waste any more time. The more time that we waste offering contracts to teachers from across this country, the more other districts will cherry pick those teachers to their district. So I do suggest we move forward. We have a lot of vacancies to fill, and we are recruiting teachers of color, teachers that have exhibited very high performance scores on both on TVAS and EOS or other assessments in the last few years, and I just strongly suggest we move forward.
Comments or questions for Tony on this?
Yeah.
Dr. Majors?
I don't really have a question for you. Sorry. I just want to say, as somebody who has spent a lot of time reading research, that the single most impactful lever for student achievement is the teacher, number one. And that's why we value all of our folks here in red today. And I know from the bottom of my heart that just watching the evolution over my career of teaching, that traditional teacher preparation programs are losing enrollment year to year in this state. The percentage of teachers of color in teacher preparation programs across Tennessee is 12% right now, according to the State Board of Education report card. And TFAs are 50% teachers of color. We know there's a high return on investment and really strong results for students when we have teachers of color in classrooms. It's good for all students. I also know that Teach for America is the highest rated teacher preparation program in the state for the second year in a row by the State Board of Education. And so if we're talking about the highest yield strategy to impact achievement, we need to have the very best teachers in every seat. And so for me, unless we have a better idea, I think we should be recruiting from the very best every year, and I believe that includes TFA.
So I saw a few teacher eyebrows go up, and I will say, as a teacher who earned 2 master's degrees in education, one in math curriculum and then a second in urban education, I don't want us I want us to kind of have a paradigm shift and really look at the teacher sitting next to you or in the classroom sitting next to you, and no matter where they came from, be able to appreciate that there is someone there, not a long-term sub, and it's not you having to take in a third of that classroom into your own because there are no teachers to fill that spot. So I want us to just look at these teacher prep programs as just other people coming into the profession. They will be able to service students, and I just want us to look at from student level. I looked at this contract, and I know we are scraping for every dollar, and thank you, Ms. Bush, for wanting to review the contracts. I think that will help us to find some extra funding, but I do think this contract is so minimal in the amount of money that we would spend, but to be able to look to the 3 classrooms next to you and know that you have 3 teachers there, I think that could be very beneficial to the morale of our schools, or the morale of our teachers, the support for our students, and just everything else that comes with the TFA backing. It's just, it's not a lot of money considering that they staff 80 teachers in my district. And I've talked about this before, how my district is so very different than many others because it has so many priority schools. Yes, I have all of the academic magnets, but I have several schools on the priority list, and considering that I taught at a school that was on the priority list, I know that doesn't say anything about the people there, it just speaks to the lack of resources, and I want to look at TFA as a partner and another resource. So it's not that us giving TFA this contract or working with TFA to recruit extra teachers will take away anything from classroom teachers right now. So I just want us to have that paradigm shift and really think about how is this going to impact our students. For the less than $500,000 a year that we would spend on this partnership, we'll be getting a bunch of teachers that will be STEM teachers, exceptional education teachers, ELL teachers, those teachers that have been hard to staff. I mean, we've heard a lot from exceptional education students, teachers, and then parents of those students saying, you all need to do something to fix it. And you're right, we definitely do. We need to be partnering with area universities. We need to be partnering with other organizations who are willing to help help us around the country and recruit, and then who are willing to help us kind of elevate this conversation and make this a national one. Because I don't know about you all, but I never considered getting an exceptional education certification, not realizing how necessary and how helpful it really could have been to me. So imagine if we have a recruiter that is tasked with doing that and recruiting people for us. So again, I guess the big thing is just I want us to put this in context on how it would impact our students and then how it would impact our teachers, considering that there'll be hopefully far less classrooms that are empty in the years to come. I mean, we definitely want to fight for teacher pay raises, but we need to fight for bodies that will be resourced, that will be supported, and that will have some sort of professional development. So I just wanted to at least offer that thought.
I just want to kind of piggyback off of Ms. Buggs. I don't want you guys, teachers, to think that we're taking away any of your credentials and your hard work and what you do. I was contacted by several people, and it wasn't TFA teachers, or they were actually MNPS teachers that said that we need them. And it's for our students, and it wasn't about, just a contract. It was about, we have a teacher shortage right now, and we need to do something to support our kids. And so just so you all know that this is definitely we're trying to do the right thing. We're just trying to make sure that you're taken care of and making sure that we take care of our students also. So just wanted to let you guys know that I have principals, MNPS principals, that are asking for, I think this is March is the month, we start to recruit and get everything, in order for our for their schools. And so we just want to make sure we support and move forward with the contract. Thank you.
Else? All right, all in 1, 2, 3,
But we have to have a motion on
5,
the
6,
floor,
7. There's still.
I move that we accept the TFA contract.
Second.
With Rachel's amendments?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So do we
Wanna
need to
have
reverse?
Or what else? I move that we accept the TFA contract with the 3 recommendations discussed with Dr. Majors and the TFA administrator.
Second. All in favor? It's unanimous, no opposition. All right. Time for announcement.
I'm going to pass.
All right.
I'll pass. Oh, no, I got you. Ms. Shepherd.
Okay. I want to say a huge thank you to my colleagues on the McGavitt Coalition who worked hard to make our 3rd annual fundraising breakfast an incredibly successful one. We had an awesome event. It was held the last week of February, and we had a meeting this morning, and we raised already almost $8,000, and we have some checks still out. So thank you for that. We award $500 scholarships on senior award night to all the seniors who qualify for this scholarship, and these breakfasts, the proceeds from these breakfasts fund those scholarships. Also, I want to thank everyone who came out, both the staff and the parents and the teachers who came out to the Northeast Quadrant budget meeting held at McGavick High School Monday, March the 18th. We had a good showing of a lot of different groups that were there. And I appreciate all the teachers who came out last Tuesday, everybody that came out last Tuesday to speak to us after the budget meeting. It's really good for us to hear from everybody. We had a good retreat last Friday. I was appreciative that everybody was there. Well, most everybody was there. And then also, in keeping with the requirement to give adequate notice, I am giving that tonight that on April the 9th meeting, we'll need to have some discussion and possibly a vote on the board floor to modify the terms of Dr. Joseph's contract.
Mrs. Spearing?
Yes, thank you. I just want to mention that NPR mentioned on the radio this week that we had a contentious board retreat. I was there. I didn't hear contention. I heard us working together cooperatively, and it was also reported by Will Pinkston, who neither NPR nor Will Pinkston were at our board retreat. So I just wanted to set the record straight on that.
Mrs. Elrod?
Pass.
Mrs. Bush?
I just want to make a quick announcement. The Southeast Easter egg event, annual event will be held on April 13th at the library, Southeast Library. And we invite all of our teachers and staff and bring those little ones between 0 to 4th grade. to the event, and we would love to see you guys there. Again, it's April 13th, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Warner Elementary School will be hosting their Career Day tomorrow, so please go out to visit those not little babies, but those young people, those elementary school students. I'm excited to see all the different professions that will be represented. This past week, not only did we celebrate with the State of Schools address, but we also had the Mayor's Youth Council Summit that Mrs. Jeannie Pooper-Walker and myself were able to at least sit briefly and hear from students. It's always good to hear their voices. You know what? It's 6 o'clock, so that's the end of my comments.
Be there no further business. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all for coming.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.